Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Dwayne.
Dwayne who?
Dwayne the bathtub. I'm drowning.
Why was I not even prepared for that? I have no idea. Good morning, everyone. How are you all doing? It's Thursday, the 28th of July. It is 8 degrees out there, mostly sunny, looking for a top of 21 degrees. Petrol is at $1.69.7. It is going down, lower and down.
To funky town.
Don't forget, if you are here for the first time, where's my coffee cup? If you're here for the first time, you need to like that smash button, if you wouldn't mind doing that. And if I'm not on at 9 o'clock Australian Eastern Standard Time every single day, I'm not on. There it is. That is the big old no-no square. I'm going to turn the countdown timer off because we don't need that. Rudy, we've got so much to do today. We've got so much to talk about today. Dwayne the bathtub. That is so bad, but I think I like it. Cheers, Rudy. Cheers. How are you, young fella? It's good to see you. How old are you now? 91? Getting close to 91 years of age. From one Gerald to another Gerald.
All hail Rudy.
All hail the great man. I've got a great guest on here today. Well, he's not great. I was bored. I didn't know who else to get on. And then John said to me, how about we have a session together? And I went, ooh, that sounds really nice. So, people, I want to introduce to you Jon Morgan.
Hey, folks.
Hey, John, how you going?
Good, Cheryl.
Mate, how was breakfast?
Very nice. Those poached eggs, perfectly done.
Can I introduce you to a whiskey? Would you like a whiskey?
No, I'm fine. Thank you very much for the offer, though.
Why won't you have a whiskey with me?
Not too bad in yourself.
No, what, really, why don't you drink whiskey? That's a comment that somebody made, that how after 30 years will you not drink whiskey?
I think, sensory memory.
Yes.
I think when I was young and I was with a friend and we perhaps had a little too much to drink.
Yeah.
And I was, violently ill. And I think even those fumes, trigger that sensory memory.
Can we try it?
No.
No, seriously.
No. Oh, good.
Just put that under your nose. Come on, I want to see what happens. Put that under your nose. Is it really like that?
No,
not at all. Put the cap back on. Hey, thank you for that. Thank you. You've been to Hawaii. You know how I know you've been to Hawaii? Because you brought me back a gift. Look at this.
Special gift.
It's a special. You were in Hawaii for I don't know how long. What are these things on the end here?
They're all the islands of Hawaii. Yep.
So can you name them?
Yes, I can.
Okay, go for it.
Maui, Kauai, Shaui, Kazaui, Wowie is really wow.
Wowie. And what about Oahu?
Yeah, Oahu and the big island of Hawaii, Kona.
I don't want to talk too much about Hawaii, but I do love my little present.
Good, mate.
Although when we had breakfast this morning, I noticed that you in the car had a little dancing Hawaiian girl. Why didn't you get me one of those?
Should have.
You should have.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
And in fact, have you looked at your dash? Because I stole it.
Did you?
I did.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
The only thing I wanted.
Mate, before we go any further,
Yes.
the degenerates and deplorables that are out there always send me a word of the day.
Oh, yeah.
And I have no idea what the word of the day is, but if we have a look at the word of the day, today's word is ageless. Age last, or agilust, or agil-ast. Age last. Do you have any idea?
I do. Yeah.
Oh, do you?
I'm very, very good with words.
Go on, what is it?
That sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes there's certain ages that last a long time.
Right.
And, certain years.
Yeah.
So I remember when, 15, I think, it was more than a year, I think, that it lasted.
Don't be silly.
So that's age last.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
apparently.
I'm just going with, I think I do know what the word is. It's something, somebody is not funny, not humorous.
That's me.
I'm going with that. That's all I know. Hey, why do I always feel inferior when I'm speaking to you? I feel like that you are so intelligent. Like, seriously, people, you don't know John that well. I know John for a very, very long time. In fact, we were talking last night about how you and I met for the very first time in year 2000. How did we meet?
So we were doing a job together. We both we were both subcontracting at the time, I think, to the Australian Institute of Management. We were facilitating various sessions, weren't we? And we met in the foyer. It was great.
Yeah, the interesting part about meeting in the foyer there,
Yes.
for me, was that I remember that was my very first gig, like my very first one, and everyone was wearing a suit, and I just refused to wear a suit. And I looked over and I saw you, and I thought, oh no, this guy's like a professor. He looks really intelligent, and you haven't not disappointed me. You are highly intelligent. Like, for those people, again, I know you don't know Jon. I know Jon very well. He's a savant. You're a savant.
Can I tell you a story?
It's my show.
Yeah.
But yeah, sure, go ahead.
Thanks, that'd be great. When I was in grade 5, I was really struggling at school. So my mum took me to this special testing centre. And they said, you're a conceptual learner. And these days, conceptual.
Yeah.
Big picture, decision making, problem solving, time management. And I said, Mum, wow, conceptual. What does it mean? She went, slow. And it's true. I'm a really slow learner.
Are you?
But I'm good once I grasp stuff. Yeah, it takes me a while to get my head around stuff. So savant, no, probably at the other end of the spectrum, to be perfectly honest.
No, I don't think so. I think when, even with the chat that we had last night, I'm sitting there and I'm going, this guy's just so intelligent. Like you are. I'm not taking the piss. Like, I'm seriously, you are highly in an intellect. Like I said to you, have you ever given up any gigs? Like, you get offered a job and you said, a third of them. That's about right. Mm-hmm. And I said things like, would you do strategic planning? And you go, oh, that's my thing. That's what I do. Me, somebody says strategic planning, or they would see, I'd be like a chicken trying to fly. I'd just flap everywhere. I wouldn't know how to do it.
I think, you underestimate yourself. Mate, I think the only difference with strategic planning is it's, like anything, probably like your show, is that it's all about the process. So it's all about agreeing on what's a process to arrive at an outcome, and then listening and reflecting and summarising and doing that. So it's all the process skills rather than the content. So when we do loads of stuff on leadership or difficult behaviours or whatever, often it's content rich. Whereas I guess for those things, it's, starting with the end in mind and then sort of building process around it. So in some ways, once you've agreed on the process, it's probably the easiest sort of gig you can ever do because it's really about being in the moment and being sharp and sort of reflecting back and being an active listener more than anything else, asking good questions.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Is that active listening? Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
No, that's a minimal encourager.
What is it?
At the moment, you're thinking about the lasagna you're going to make tonight for dinner. and you just, it's kind of like showing that, I'm kind of, hello, yes.
That's so true. I was just, there was a bird flying out the back of the... That's so good. Because that whole monologue that you just came up with for the last 3 minutes, it was like, what's he talking about? How do you do that? Like, how do you just know your stuff so well? Like, seriously, you're a savant. You know your stuff so well. You do.
That's
like,
so
even at
inaccurate.
breakfast this morning. Like, even at breakfast, we're trying to just have a couple of poached eggs. But I did notice something within the breakfast is you're not very creative. Like, you copied me. You go, oh, what are you having, mate? And I said, I'll have a $6 cup of coffee. Did you notice the coffee had all its little flowery bit? You took a photo of the damn thing.
Only because it reminded me of a symbol that I saw in Hawaii, which I thought must be...
You're a name dropper. Where did you go? Where have you been for the last 6 weeks? Hawaii. And this is what I got. Like, some people that come back from holidays will bring me something of value. Thanks, mate. And how many of these did you buy?
No, I only bought like 4.
Oh, 4.
Yeah.
So it's not even, I'm going to get this for Gerald.
Yeah.
Because he's a great mate of mine.
Another great mate. And
get this.
Couple of
and I don't
in-laws.
drink beer. On a couple of in-laws. So you put me in the same basket as your in-laws.
I did, which is, impressive.
That is impressive.
But the other thing about that surfboard, there's a button underneath. If you touch it, it expands into our full-size surfboard.
I see. I see what you did there. Are there any differences between Hawaii and Australia?
Yes, there are differences. The accent is one.
Yes.
We have a lovely couple that live with us. And he is from the Big Island, the big island of Kona, and he's really lovely human being, Cash, and he often says when I say, "Oh, Cash, would you mind helping me with something, or can I ask you something?" Of course. They're very obliging, the Hawaiians. A lot of people would say, "Of course."
Of course.
And I think there's a lot of similarities with Australians in the sense that they're quite grounded. I come from the Sunshine Coast. There's there's a lot of relaxed time frames both at the coast and Hawaii. There's some sadness too. There's still the same sort of homeless issue that we experience at the Sunshine Coast. But the people are great. I found the people really terrific. And I found it really interesting that they identify themselves, or a lot that I found, it could be a vast generalisation, that they identify themselves as Hawaiians rather than Americans.
Oh, really? So it's so where are you? Where are you from? They say it.
Yeah.
Or what's your nationality? And they go, I'm Hawaiian. They don't say I'm American.
Yeah, I think,
right?
where are you from? If you said, where are you from, a lot of those people would respond from Hawaii as opposed to from America.
Are the prices different?
Expensive. Yeah.
Really? Give me an example.
A bit of a shop, you go out and get a few things, fill maybe a third of your fridge, and it's like, 300, 350 American, what's that, 450, 500 Australian?
Yeah.
Sort of, it just, when you go down to Woolies here, I found that quite extraordinary, that it was an expensive place. But then again, they're importing a lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. It's good to travel. You were gone for how long?
3 weeks.
3 weeks. Okay. So
3
came
weeks
back
with-
and then back into the swing of things.
Yeah, just went with the family. We've got adult kids now, and they've got partners and wives, and it's a great way of being able to connect with them, is sharing a house and having a few drinks together, cooking together, going snorkeling together, doing whatever, and often some level of activity. So love that idea that we could
What happened to your beard?
go and snorkel.
See, I just went
Casey,
ADD again.
Yeah, my youngest partner.
Yeah.
My beard was getting a bit bushy, a bit out of control.
Yeah.
And actually, the reality was my mask, my face mask for snorkeling, was difficult to get around it.
Yeah.
And I said to Casey, "Can I please borrow your clippers?" Mm-hmm. They didn't have the top on, but I thought I'm fairly skillful at this. I can do this, and I went, and it took a big chunk out of the side of my cheek.
No way.
Not so much my cheek, but the bearded part of the cheek. And then I thought, I can't just leave that whole.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of
Just cut it off.
cut it off.
Yeah. What was the most exciting part about Hawaii?
Connecting with the family by far. Just hanging with them, being with them, joking with them, having fun with them. Also the natural world. Really loved the snorkeling, swimming with the giant manta rays, bit of horse riding, going into the volcanoes. The mountains. It was just fantastic. That was brilliant.
Mate, one of the things I always like doing before we do the whole thing is I always like bringing up the news. Is it okay if I bring up the news?
Of course.
Because we need to show a little bit of the news. So this is what we have, our very, very first news item of the day.
This is concerning.
A TikToker is savaged over controversial shower routine. Is this a joke? So I clicked into the news item itself, and this woman here only showers once every 10 days.
Wow.
Is that good?
I don't know. I guess, I don't want to judge. You've got your own hygiene standards, and I'm sure that, maybe she covers stuff with deodorant, no doubt.
No doubt.
And maybe the little washer, under the armpit. So all good.
What's the longest, can I ask you, what's the longest you've gone without having a shower?
At one stage.
Including last night, by the way, just to let you know.
Yeah. Well, I did. I'll give you an example. My dad was a scientist. This is a long-winded answer to the story.
Okay.
But he was a scientist, so he felt, and a science teacher, physics teacher, he felt that we didn't want to get too comfortable as a family. So every 10 years, he took us over to a different country. We lived there for a year. And in that case, went to school or what have you. So first one was Canada. Second one was Scotland. And when we're in Scotland, I don't know whether it was because we were trying to save money or whether the hot water system was particularly small, but we would have one bath between the four of us. And because I was the youngest, I only had one sister, not two, that was over there. But because I was the youngest, I went last. And It was so bad.
Yeah.
Like as a 14-year-old,
Yeah.
you know, you'd look in that bath, it'd just be full of hair. It was revolting.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there were times where I went, no, I can't do that.
Can't do it.
And colder climate, it's okay. So maybe a few days with that.
Oh, two, 3 days.
Maybe 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
But, yeah, I don't know. I do like to wash at least to some level.
There was a guy last week who said that he washes his sheets twice a year. But there's some method to his madness.
Mm-hmm.
So he wears a t-shirt and pajamas
Yes.
and socks.
Yes.
And I think he might even wear some sort of headband.
Good.
So he then sleeps in a good. It's an attractive look, isn't it? And then he sleeps in the bed, and then he airs his sheets in the morning, every morning, and he says he lets the sun do it, and so he only washes his sheets twice a year. No,
It's good to let the sun do the heavy lifting, isn't it, really?
yeah, that's a good excuse for saying how lazy I am, that I don't want to be able to do anything. It sounds like to me your father was a good mentor of yours, was he?
He was fantastic. You know, probably my number one role model, I would suggest.
Is it okay? Even though I had it on the thumbnail, like role models with Jon Morgan, let's talk a little bit about role models, because I'm fascinated about the shaping of who you are and who people are. And maybe what I'm going to also do is, for the people who are watching this, if you want to, you know what to do. If you want to join, I'll put the ID up here so you can call us at any time. I'm going to put the what am I trying to say? You can call in. It's not that hard, Gerald. I want you to call in if you have any questions to ask Jon about being a good role model or about mentorship or something. Give us a bit of a call, and I think I'll put it up on the live thing. All the phone numbers are in the description below. So, role model. Talk to me more about role models. What is a role model anyway?
So for me, it's not about it's not about perfection, but it is about someone who sets an example, someone that you look up to, someone that you admire. And when I say it's not about perfection, it's not saying that they're perfect all-round person, but they're influential in the way they work. And certainly I've had some incredible role models. But Dad was amazing as such.
Because I get confused about that whole terminology, role model, and I'm thinking sometimes, I wonder if I even have a role model. How do I know if I've got a role model?
Yeah, it's a good thought. I was doing a workshop yesterday with the university, and the new director of HR was talking, and he said, you know, I had mentors, but I didn't formally call them mentors. You know, I'd learn a lot from them. I'd ask them questions and so forth. So I guess it depends on the need. You know, if there's a willingness to learn, there's a need, and you look at people and you think, wow, there's something about those people that I admire. It's perhaps it's tapping into their experience, but it's also learning from their actions rather than just their words. You know, the way they go about living their life, I guess, and thinking, wow, is that something that I can learn from as well?
It's interesting because I think I grew up like Rudy, for example, my father. I don't know if he was a great role model. I mean, he was my father, and I wouldn't. I don't know how to say this, but without trying to offend him, but I don't think he was a role model, meaning that I didn't look to him to go, oh, I want to emulate that. There were some parts of him that I thought was really cool, like the way that he would be really professional within customer service. Like he was just so professional. I think maybe I got a little bit of that from him. But in other ways of following in his footsteps, I don't know. I don't know. I know I had a soccer coach and my tennis coach were great. Well, they were great coaches. They weren't role models. I didn't look up to them. So I'm still trying to work out whether I had a really good role model.
Yeah, I mean, for one of the things I noticed about my dad passed away a number of years ago now, maybe 5 years ago, what have you, and I remember before he was getting dementia, before he lost his voice, I was trying to interview him, you know, and I was going, what are the most important parts of your life? What do you think about?
Yeah.
And he'd said, oh, you know, family and love of a family, but also community service. But it wasn't so much the words, it was the fact that his whole life he'd spent, you know, he was 85 when he passed away, probably at that stage it was 82. and he'd spent 60 years contributing to Rotary clubs and other causes and wildlife preservation and doing a whole lot of stuff. But he was also, if he saw someone in need, someone that needed some help, he was incredibly generous with his time and his support and so forth. And he was an amazing dad. Like for someone that was as a child was quite neglected as a child, he was extraordinarily thoughtful man. So they were the things that for me, like looking at him through osmosis, if you like, I'm not consciously going, wow, it's about community or it's about family, but they became really important values for me because I loved the way he was as a parent. I loved the way he was as a friend and how he looked after other teachers or contributed to society or did lots of things for his local community. So, for me, that was just the admiration of certain aspects and thinking, wow, I want to be like that.
It's fascinating because I remember in my younger years, like Mum, who was a fantastic mother, but I think being of strict German upbringing, excuse me, and Dad also being real Austrian, their mindset was kind of like, let's just say for example, I'd come home from winning a tennis match, and I'd have my 6 or 7 rackets in my bag, and then I'd walk over to the train station, and I'd get to the other end of the train, and I couldn't walk anymore. Like I'm tired. I've just spent a whole day
exhausted.
I'm exhausted, and so I thought I'd just get on the phone box and I'd call up the 1100 number, reverse charges. And I remember getting on the phone to my mother and saying, I'm just at Lewisham Station. Can you come and pick me up? And she goes, what is wrong with you? What's happened? I said, nothing. I'm just really tired. She said, your leg's broken. I went, no, everything's good. Did you hurt yourself? No. Well, you can walk home. And so I think, a lot of people say, wow. But I think that part of me was like, what's wrong with me? Like, what is wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with me. It's only like 9 kilometres up the road. I can walk that. And then when you get home, she would then, she'd be the mother, and then she would say, okay, now you eat. And did you win? Yeah, I won. Good. I didn't expect anything else. So it was that kind of, and it wasn't like it was harsh, but that's what I grew up with. And so when I then see other people who whinge about maybe having to, it's so hard, it's so hot out there, I kind of like go, what was your upbringing like? And so is that a role model to me, that I now model that behaviour that says, which is bad, I think, for me, because my filter is very shut down. I see somebody struggling and I go, what's wrong with you? Get up.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting comment about your mum, like building resilience and maybe determination and pushing through stuff, which is terrific. But the flip side of that, maybe I'm not as empathetic as I could be, or not you specifically, mate.
Yeah, true.
But maybe I don't have as much tolerance and so forth in that regard. So I think there's a bit of both, double-edged sword.
Yeah, I've just got a comment that come up here. I might just put that up. I love when people put comments up because sometimes it's interesting to read what they say. Hang on. It was Brood who wrote something. Sorry, Brood, hang on 2 seconds, mate. I saw what you wrote. Anyway, maybe I have to forget it. I can't find them. Anyway, I can't find it. There was something around, I can't even think. Was that silly? Anyway, you might see it a little bit later. So my role model, I would say, would be, there was a guy called Daryl Perry. I looked up to this guy who was, I think once I left school and before I could earn any money, it was important that my father had said, you must work. And I worked at the railway. So I worked as a shunter. I don't know if you know what a shunter is, but they shunt trains. And I saw some horrific accidents, and I saw a death on there, which really shaped me in other ways.
Wow.
But and I had this guy called Daryl who used to say things to me like, mate, what are you doing here? And I go, well, I'm working. I'm employed. That's what I want to do. He says, your brain's way too smart for this sort of stuff here. You shouldn't be in here. You should be somewhere else. But he never offered anything. But I think that sort of conversation stayed with me. Like, he questioned why I was there rather than encouraging me to, hey, mate, you could maybe move up the ranks and you could be a dogman, or you could be a I don't know, you could be a presser, or you could be a welder, or you could do something like that.
We'll knock in those dog spikes.
Or knock in the dog spikes. And then he kind of like said, he said, I want you out of here in 6 months. And so that was my career ended. He said after 6 months, if you're still here, I'm not going to rehire you. So it was interesting because he saw something different than other people would, where you just go into a job and you just work the job and you're in that job forever. But there was something about, well, maybe he wanted me gone, but there was something about what he had said that drove me to go, I need to get out of here because I'm going to be gone in 6 months. And then I think I just travelled overseas.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like, part of that is, it's not just the feel-good factor of mentoring, it's people that challenge you. But I guess there's another component of that, and that is that idea of seeing potential in you. Maybe seeing stuff in you that perhaps you don't see in yourself. You think, I'm doing a job and I'm fulfilling those expectations and I'm working, and in a way I'm fulfilling that expectation of mum and dad that, you work hard to get on, you pay your way, etc. But I do think, I had someone in one of the first commercial organisations that I worked with who said to me, it was kind of, either you're really good or you're really naive, John,
Yeah.
But I really like the way you work with other people, and I think you should keep doing that and so forth. And I think I'm a bit of both. I think I'm quite naive in the way I live my life and a bit idealistic at times.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I love people that do challenge you. They might ask a question, or they might reflect a comment like Daryl did for you, where actually, do I need to challenge myself? Do I think, is there something better than this for me longer term? Is there a better way of applying my skills, my strengths to the world? And I think that's terrific. I mean, my dad was a really brilliant scientist and a great teacher, really well respected. I actually went to the school that he taught at, and I got no trouble because everybody loved him. They thought he was generous and a good man. But one thing he said to me when I finished school, I'd worked really hard to try and get through school, conceptual learner stuff, and when I finished, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I had a whole bunch of friends that knew exactly where they wanted to go and so forth. And he said, you don't know what you want to do, son. Have you thought about doing a Bachelor of Business? It's general enough, gives you some choices. I went, that's a good idea. But again, it's advice, but it also might be a question that you have to answer yourself. Or it might be the challenge, I don't want you to be here in 6 months.
Yeah. So do you think you're a role model to someone? Like, do you think you're a role model to your kids?
I don't know, mate.
You'd have to ask them, wouldn't you?
I think so. I don't think about it. I think, one of my sort of favourite sayings is sort of have faith in the process. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've made huge stuff ups with my kids over the years.
Yes,
not debilitating stuff, but I've done some things that certainly regret. But sure, I want to be there for them. I want to support them. I want to help them. I mean, one of the issues about being a role model, do you do too much? Do you disable your kids by doing too much? I'm not sure. All I know is that if I can apply that unconditional positive regard, that love to them and support them, and I am incredibly interested in everything they do. My daughter's studying mental health. My son's a landscaper. I'm interested in every job that he's a part of. Yeah. So I think in a way that's important, that they feel valued, they feel absolutely loved, they feel supported, they feel that they can, come and live with us anytime. If they were ever in trouble, they could come and live with us. They could, and it wouldn't be a drama. And it's happened.
Are you a helicopter parent? Like, or have you cut the umbilical cord really early?
Well, no. I love to engage with adult kids, but one of the things that I think is really interesting is when I was first in a sort of a management role years ago, and you and I have both done this and probably facilitated it too. There's a model around situational leadership, this idea of adapting to a situation. And when I did the questionnaire, when I was a manager, I came up with, I think, 9 out of 12 of those situations I was described as a coach, which is high in direction and high in supportive behaviour. And I was, probably young, you know, a little bit arrogant and go, oh, I like the sound of coaching. The facilitator came up behind me and said, means you're a control freak, John. And it was like, oh, aha moment.
Yeah,
so part of that is then, you know, the blind spot of, geez, am I really a control freak? When I had kids, you know, I'd be, you know, you can stop telling us that, Dad. You've told me like 15 times about that, you know. And so that idea of, you know, noticing those sort of behaviours and going, actually, that's not that helpful. One decision that I really consciously made at 8 when the kids were both 18 and they were, you know, both pretty keen to jump out of the blocks and do some cool things, whether that's travel or live you know, in different parts, etc. One of the things I tried to do was that idea of I'm not going to be the parent that tells you what you should be doing or how you should be doing. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to reflect back. I'm going to ask you a question about your choices. But ultimately, what you do is up to you. You know, you're an adult now. So I'm happy to guide, but I certainly don't want to direct anymore. You know, you're not a kid. You're an adult.
Do you call your kids out on their bullshit sometimes?
Sometimes, yeah. But then again, you know, I mean, I've got my own bullshit. So, you know, I think there's got to be, you know, I think the lovely thing about going away with the family is we were together for 3 weeks. We didn't have any arguments. We enjoyed each other's company. I've got no doubt, as you experienced this morning, that incessant whistling that I do or singing was really annoying, or dad jokes. But, you know, there's a degree of tolerance, isn't there, around different personalities and stuff. But, you know, I'm sure I've got annoying habits. There's probably some things occasionally see in them that are a bit annoying. But, you know, the thing I love, I have to say, that I admire them is that they're good people. They're kind people. They're generous people. They think of others. They support each other's. That's all I want. I don't care what they do with their life as long as they're good characters. So, you know, there's the learning, I guess, when you're getting a bit older too, about that idea of accepting people for who they are and, noticing the differences, but not getting obsessed with the little things that might be personally a bit annoying.
Do you have like really strong values? And just think about that question for a moment. But somebody just brought this up here. Karen Martin says, at Kirky Valley, wow, this is bringing back memories from my childhood. My own children have chosen many different paths and I try to instill my values on them. So the reason why I wanted to bring up the word values is that I'm just trying to think about how important values are and what values and ethics and morals really means, as opposed to, you know, some of the facts that we might have. So I might give you a fact of something. I think we spoke last night about, you know, you said, what's woke mean? You know, what does woke mean? I said, there are a bunch of woke leftists. And you go, what does woke mean? And I guess that's a value that's instilled in me, is that I don't put up with the bullshit that's happening on one side, where I like to see holistic conversations happen. Mm-hmm. And so if someone's talking about you try to instill values, what are some of the values that you think are really important that every person should maybe grow up with?
Yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, I'm incredibly... I think values are about lifestyle, you know, the choices you make in life and what's important to you. And again, one of the things I think about is that, you know, if you think about a psych that I knew at one stage, and it's like a parenting course that would say, just when you get up in the morning and you cut your kids' lunches and you go to work and you work really hard and then you come back and you cook and you know, you might help with homework and then you might, even though you're exhausted, you might read a book. You don't have to say anything. You just have to do it. That's enough role modeling. So in other words, they're going to learn from the actions, not the words. So it's not so much about espousing values, because in some organisations, there's a lot of values on the wall, but they don't actually live those values, you know, in terms of the behaviours. So I think for me, it's about, you know, knowing that everybody's a work in progress, but at the same time, certain things that are important for you. So for instance, we've had lots and lots and lots of people over the years that we've taken in to the home, our home, when there's been a need. So it might be, you know, a loss of a parent or whatever, and they need a place to live. So we had someone that lived for almost a year with us, with friends that have come over and lived with us for 5 or 6 months, or people that have been affected by DV who have come into the house. And the one thing I noticed in that is this replicates very much Simone, my wife's family, because her mum and dad and they and also their parents. If there was ever a need in the community and someone was doing it tough, whether it was a relative or a friend or someone they'd meet, come and live with us. We'll put a bed somewhere. We'll come and stay with us. So for me, this idea of that value is about trying to be a bit generous if you can, and trying to be inclusive with people, welcome people into your home, whether that's for a meal or whether that's staying or whatever. We've got a friend of our daughter's that's kind of staying with us part-time. Great girl, recently had some loss herself and needs a bit of a safe place. That level of service is about meaning for me. It's about actually the satisfaction from being there for other people. So I reckon both my adult children really live that well. They're very generous of heart. They've got big hearts. So those sort of values I think are really important. But I'm not suggesting that some values are more important than the other. But I think for me, it's that, coming back to Dad, it's that sense of community, it's that sense of family. I can be just as big a prick as anybody else in terms of with my reactions and my frustrations and so forth. But at the same time, there's some core stuff there, isn't there? That we all think important things for other people to embrace.
It's interesting. I always remember one really defining moment in my mother, and that was, I remember coming home from school one day, and we always had this vagrant. I'm not too sure what his name was, but this vagrant had long hair, long beard, but he had an Afghan dog, this beautiful Afghan dog, and he used to always sit at the edge on the fence, and it was like, I wonder why he would sit there. And I remember one day I came home from school and he was sitting there and there was no dog. And I remember Mum had been outside and she was just having a chat to him, and he was crying. He was just like in like tears. The next day I went to school, and then I came back home and he was sitting again on the end of the bench there, and he had this wonderful basket with him with all this food, and he had a brand new suit and everything. And I remember going inside and I said to Mum, what happened to, let's call him Jack. I said, what happened to Jack? And she said, oh, nothing's happened to Jack. She said, for the first time, I asked him if he wanted a shower, and he said yes. So she dragged him inside. She gave him some soap and a towel, and then got two of Dad's suits and gave him two suits. And then he would then sit on the edge of the thing. And it was, for me, it was the loss of the dog, which was more heartbreaking than what it was as giving him, some clothing. And the day after that, he was gone. I didn't see him ever again. Wow. And that sort of stuck in my mind. I think the only part of my generosity that I have is I like giving. I like to give. Very much. I like to be able to share and to give information. And I think that might be what I say is a defining moment that had shaped a little bit of my life. And, I love that about my mother. What I want to do...
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I want to bring this up. Look, there is the phone number. What do you want to chat about? If you do want to call Jon up and have a bit of a chat about maybe your values, your life, your background, your history, there's the number. Call that number. In the description box, there's also other numbers you might want to be able to call, but there's the passcode. I'll leave that up for a second. Some of you already know it. Have it written down somewhere. 666. Of course, it's 666. But if you want to make a call, the lines are open and we'll be able to do that. So for you... I think when we were talking last night and we spoke about that whole concept of being a role model, your program that you have, and I love your shirt that you've got on there, which is Marcus Mission, and we've spoken about this before.
Yep.
I want to bring up some of the comments that somebody had made with regards to that interview that you and I had done.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't mind, so Dylan Q wrote this one here. He said, I don't know who these two old guys are, but I can't stop watching Beer and Thumbs Up. 30 minutes in. I wish my male friends would speak openly like this and not bottle it up inside. Why do we do that, mate? Why do we bottle it up?
Yeah, it's a good call, isn't it? I guess the more we associate with those traditional male values of being silent and stoic and strong and self-reliant, the more difficult it is for us to be vulnerable. And those values, there's nothing wrong with those values. They're great things. If we want to get on with stuff and make it happen and push through, a bit like when you're coming back from the train station with Mum, they're great values to tap into so that you can be resilient. But the trouble is that, a bit like leadership, you really need to be adaptable. So there needs to be time where we can where we can, be able to open up and talk about stuff. And there's a bit of a myth that that in fact people, men in particularly, don't like to talk about stuff. I've found that absolutely wrong. With Marcus Mission program that we run, suicide prevention program, it's about creating the right atmosphere. If you can create an informal atmosphere where it's really, really authentic and you have good conversations and it's relaxed and easy, we found that blokes really do open up and they appreciate that opportunity to support. But it's also that fear of being judged. What is tablespoon of cement, toughen up a bit, all that sort of shit that you hear, as opposed to allowing blokes to be able to talk through what they're struggling with and having someone hear them. It's not something that is attached to those traditional values.
Mate, I think we have a caller in, so if you wouldn't mind just whacking on your headphones.
Will do.
For now, I don't know if this caller is still here. Let me just do a quick check. Oh, hang on. Can you hear me, mate?
Hello?
Hello, can hear you. Can you hear us?
Hello?
Hello?
We can hear you.
You can hear me?
I can hear you.
Fantastic. Can I get a thumbs up from one of the people out there? Because I think it's coming. Hello? I might have to...
Hey, G-Mann.
I can hear you, but I'm not sure if anyone else can hear us out there.
All right.
What is it you want to ask?
I wanted to just have a little bit of a chat about how we're all role models.
Okay.
Sometimes we don't even actually realise that we're role models.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody will come up to you and they'll say, because of you, I've done this or that or something else. You really inspired me to do that thing, whatever it was. And suddenly, unexpectedly, you realise that you are actually a role model for someone.
Yeah, that's so good. Can I ask who I'm speaking to so we can just give your name out there? Or you can keep yourself confidential if you like.
It's free thought domain.
Hey, FTD, how you doing? It didn't come up on the screen there. But do you have a good example?
No, I don't know how to do that.
That's okay. Do you have a good example of where you thought that, where you say you're a good role model, but you didn't even know that you were a role model until somebody maybe tapped you on the shoulder and said, wow, you taught me some things?
Yeah, well, as you know, I'm a personal trainer, I'm a aerobics instructor, so I was just teaching my classes this many years ago now, and, there was a few people who you connect to in the class, and some people come and go and you barely say two words to them, but some people, they're there every week and they're doing their thing, and one of these young girls came up at the end of one of the classes one day and she said, I've decided to become an instructor because I've watched you being an instructor and you've really inspired me to take that next step and become an instructor. And, it was nothing I set out to do. I didn't set out to inspire anybody to be an instructor. I just wanted everybody to have a good, fun class every week.
John, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I love that. I think it is about setting the tone, isn't it? And it's such a nice thing to hear, isn't it? That, just by the nature of not trying to do anything in particular, but just the way you live your life and the way you interact with people, that it's inspiring to others. It's a wonderful thing. We don't necessarily set out that we want to be a role model and so forth, but it's nice when the way you live your life sort of resonates for other people and they get inspired by it. Terrific.
Yeah, free thought. Just, John, whack your headphones on because I think I just changed the audio on that because I think it was coming out of the TV. Do you want to add something else to that, free thought?
I'll kind of have a question, a bit of a topical conversation. Should sports stars be role models? Should they be held up as role models? they are role models, like I just explained, but should they be held up and should their behaviours be held to a higher standard than the rest of community?
Wow, good question. I'm not going to answer that. John, I'm going to leave that with you.
I'll take that off for a bit. Yeah, again, a really good question, isn't it, about role models and sporting people and so forth. I guess one of the things I always sort of think about with that notion of ethics is they say, would you be comfortable printing this in the paper? Would you be comfortable, publishing what you're doing and the way you're going about living your life in the paper? And so I'm not sure everything I've ever done I want to publish in the paper. But at the same time, I think the tough part for sports people, and I really feel for them, is their life is under absolute scrutiny. So it's like 24/7, isn't it? It's not like they've got to be a role model like us. If you like, we go to work and as a PT or facilitator or whatever, during that time we've got to really be appropriate, professional, engage with people well. This is the idea that actually anything they do outside their working hours is under scrutiny. So I really struggle a bit with that because I think that's a really tough gig to have. But I have to say, when I look at role models, when I look at sports people that are inspiring to me, I look at someone who, for a number of years lived at the sunny coast, Pat Rafter and other people where I go, wow, they're generous in nature. They've got a degree of humility. They're kind, but they're competitive as well. They're amazing people. So those people I definitely align to. But I think it's a tough gig being a sports person where your whole life is under scrutiny. And anything you do or anything you say or any time that you're provoked, if you like. If you respond to that, you're immediately criticised by the public. And I really hate I have to say as a society, I really hate the shaming that we give people. Like even a cricketer recently that was exposed for sending a few texts and so forth. Just because they're a cricketer in a great position, there's probably a huge percentage of men and others that have done that in their life, but they're not exposed for it. So I don't know. I think we're incredibly critical of people that are in the public eye, and I'm not necessarily comfortable with that either. But at the same time, there are some people when they get on and they vent and they let fly and so forth, and I think, oh, is that really necessary? In the way they use themselves as a bit of a mouthpiece, not for any constructive purpose either.
Interesting. So, free thought. Do you remember the self-test that I brought up a couple of weeks ago? Do you remember the self-test? And John, I might even test you on this one. Do you remember self-test?
No, I don't remember.
No, I'm just saying, like putting people on the spot here, because this is an educational program, not just a rubbish program.
Of course it is. That's why I joined you.
I'm sure. So the self-test, John, is that, and I love that when you say you don't want to be on the front page of the Courier Mail or you don't want to be scrutinised. So the self-test for me is S is for scrutiny. Will what you're about to say, whether it's sending a text or whether you're saying something within the media, will it stand up to scrutiny? Will you end up on the front page of the newspaper or on a current affair? The E is for, is it ethical? The L is for, is it legal? And F is for fair. So I think when when John was just talking about that whole, looking at your football player, your cricketer as your role model, I don't. I see them as football players and I see them as cricket players. It's not something that I look up to, but I do understand a young boy or a young girl who looks up to a football or a netball player or a swimmer and they go, I want to be like that person. What do I have to do? And then they may get...
they are their heroes, I suppose we would call them.
Yeah, the hero journey. I think that's really important, yeah. Do you think we may have overused that word also, hero? Because it seems like to me a person...
Absolutely. And that I think the other kind of side of that question is when you've got a young child who is, say, emulating someone, and I'm just going to pick a tennis name because John did, Nick Kyrgios, for example. Now, he, to me, I wouldn't probably want. I'd probably rather Pat Rafter be the role model, whereas the young child might connect with Nick Kyrgios better. So is it partly to do with parents guiding their kids into, and the PG rating on movies and things? Should there be a PG rating on who your kids' heroes are too? Or even, that was really great, the way he played tennis is awesome. He won, he did really well, but the way he dealt with the call by the umpire, that wasn't appropriate. So guiding your kids, giving that PG to your kids on their heroes when things don't go quite how you would like them to go for your kids to be emulating.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah. I'm just deep in thought, because I'm thinking, as you're saying all that, is that I'm now thinking, what does it take if I want to set myself up to be a good role model? Say I want to set myself up, I'm 60 years of age, and I go, I want to be a good role model, and I want to change the deplorable and the degenerates from this into having people watch that says, wow, I could really learn from this person. John, what do you reckon?
Yeah. What
do you reckon I should start to do to maybe become a good role model? And I'll say thanks, Free Thought, on that one there. We'll hang up and we'll have a chat with John.
Thanks
a lot.
Thanks, G-Mann.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So what do you think, John? I want to be a role model. What do I need to do?
Is it the truth? Is it fair? Is it kind? I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't be honest at all. I think there's lots of situations where we need to be honest with people and upfront about our views. But I do think this idea of sometimes choosing to be kind rather than right is useful.
That's good.
So for instance, you and I both played tennis when we were kids. You're far better than me, but we played tennis, and part of that respect, or the values that were instilled in me, is that, and I didn't necessarily always live this, but is that your kind of referee's decision is the referee. If they call it out, it's out. And even if you think it's in. I mean, now we've got all technology that can help us with that. So just this idea of not thinking that you're bigger than the game, or not thinking that you're bigger than other people, I really loved that conversation about the rating. Is this about reflecting on what do you like about a particular player or a particular person, and you admire their talent, you admire their drive, you admire whatever, but also reflecting on the aspects that perhaps aren't as appropriate, or the opinions that appear to be disrespectful, or people that criticise others too easily. I actually find it. I don't have a lot of social media stuff. Just post a few pictures of sunsets and
dogs.
And dogs. But at the same time, one of the things that I do find a bit horrendous is why we have a need to always criticise other people when we've got nothing to do with their lives. So
it makes them feel good.
Makes them feel good, yeah.
Well, it does. I mean, if I criticise you about something that has nothing to do with our friendship, but I just see you as a person out there and I just criticise you, it makes me feel good that I can actually have a say and put you down, because I try to lower your standards so that you come down to me rather than me raising my standards to come up to you. I think that's one of the reasons why people do that.
So maybe it is about power or control or whatever, but I do think that when I look at posts sometimes that you see or what have you, and people responding to stuff, and I go, wow, that's pretty savage, and do we need to be that savage? And I love the idea of having a good debate. I've never, particularly in a work situation, last sort of 30 years facilitating, I've never had an argument in a workshop. We've had some good debates, but I love the fact that we can keep it to more about evidence and more honest about the facts rather than, so this ideal of kicking the ball rather than the person. Let's look at the behaviour and let's have a discussion about what's good about it and what's maybe not so appropriate, when coming back to the last caller about your kids. And that's really good, because part of this is about educating them and helping them to understand what's appropriate and what's not, and having a good solid discussion. But the idea of that relentless, criticism of other people when you've got nothing to do with their lives, I think, well,
Insecurity.
yeah, do we need to do that?
Insecure. There's a great question up here. Somebody just brought up. Brian Holland says, "Why does anyone want to be a role model?"
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think it's about wanting to be. I don't think many people set out to be a role model.
Yeah.
I love that last caller where it was about, hey, it's really nice when people say, hey, I want to be a personal trainer because I really admire the way you go about it. It's about living your life authentically, isn't it? And trying, in my opinion, part of the reason for life is being able to live a life where you contribute to society, where you contribute more than you take. That you're more of a giver than a taker. So, if you can live your life and the spin-off is that you might inspire people, or you might make people feel good about themselves or about their abilities, just like Daryl did for you in the railways with the provocation question, then that's a good thing. So, I don't think anybody really sets out trying to be the best role model and so forth, because I think we're all works in progress. I think we've all got flaws and we've all got struggles and we've all got strengths. But it's nice when sometimes those strengths help other people for whatever reason.
I just saw a comment up there. Free Thought Domain just said, we can give criticism with kindness. That's a feedback, isn't it? I think we used to call it constructive criticism in those two words. One's constructive, the other one's criticism. But it's just, I'm giving you some information and I'm doing it from the love of my heart. I'm not trying to bring you down, but I just need you to learn. There's another great question here, or a statement says, I heard someone today say a smart person knows the situation and a wise person knows whether to discuss the situation.
Wow, that's great.
Well, that's pretty deep, isn't it? But I guess, they're going.
No, I really like that. It's not about knowing. It's about, should I be involved in this? And is this something that's worthwhile discussing? And is it going to help the other person? So when you think about constructive criticism, if I'm coming from a place where I'm, want to help you develop as a person, and I'm not trying to make you feel guilty or shame you or make you feel bad, but I actually just want you to highlight something. Because, I know Simone says to me at times, John, I know you've got really good intentions, but just by the way, when you say this in this situation, this is the impact, and, I'm sure you agree that we don't want that. And it's true, because it's a blind spot, but she's doing it in a kind way. She's giving me feedback so I can improve. But if we're constantly picking people up on every little thing, and turning away from them as opposed to turning towards them and admiring other aspects, then it's going to be difficult for us to sit in that relationship. If I feel I'm under scrutiny the whole time, that invokes some fear, and we might withdraw or we might get defensive, etc.
There's a great, another good comment here. Tricombe79 says, social media has created a selfish, zero fucks given attitude to many people to try to emulate. Very material, and it's a look at me, look at me. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, look, absolutely. I think that, and I'm guilty of this too. That I have friends that say, if you're going away or if you're doing something, send us a pic of the scenery or whatever. But the trouble with that is that we're sort of saying this is what life should be about. Everybody should be living this sort of life. We don't put a lot of pics on social media about when we're struggling. So I certainly think, over-reliance on social media is hugely dangerous. And if we get our gratification from the number of likes and so forth, it becomes incredibly addictive.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's helpful for anybody. But at the same time, I do think it's about, again, is this constructive? Is this something that is useful? Or is this something that actually is setting up other people to feel bad about their life or themselves or whatever?
You brought up something earlier on in our conversation about this blind spot. Are you talking about, I'm trying to think back, is that Joe Harry window? Is it where we got the known to self, the unknown, the blind spot? What's the blind spot though?
So just that blind spot, and I'll sort of give an example. Like, a blind spot is where I don't know it, I don't see it in myself, but other people see it and it's really obvious. So I've had lots of learnings in the last 10 years, which I would have liked to have had 40 years ago, where I do something and it's actually, even though I've got reasonably good intentions, it's got a negative impact on other people. So got to be a bit careful about what I say and when I say it, and not say something is actually not that helpful. So for instance, I'll give you an example. A really silly example was when I was in grade 11, I was 16 or whatever, someone came up to me and said, "Oh, John, you're the most sarcastic person I've ever met in my entire life." So I've turned around to them and I've said a sarcastic comment and I've gone, "Geez, I think that's sarcasm, I just thought I was funny." So I went home to my parents and I said, "Do you think I'm sarcastic?" And they went, and they started crying with laughter. And I went, "Why didn't you tell me?" And we just thought it was a stage. It was no big deal. But honestly, it was mortifying to think that I've continually saying stuff and not even recognising I'm doing it. So just that idea of, I can't regulate myself or I can't change the way I think or speak unless I'm aware of what I'm doing. For instance, when I first was driving, I lived on a sort of a dirt road. My mum had a Morris Mini Minor. She said, "Here's the keys, son. Come up this hill. Go for a drive." And I went, "Oh, this looks pretty easy." I got in this car and I'm going like this. Useless. My kids were much better drivers than I were, I have to say, like this. And I hit this dirt patch on the side of Rafton Grand Road. The car spins around 180 degrees. My mum, I have to say, cool as a cucumber, goes, "Yeah, I think I might take over from there." Now, the great thing about that is if I've just gone from being unconsciously incompetent and an arrogant little 16, 17-year-old to consciously incompetent, I've got no idea what to do here. And then we start going back to the car parks and the industrial estates or whatever, and you start, doing your kangaroo hops with your manual car, but you start to learn and you're really conscious of trying to learn. Now, yesterday I drove from the Sunshine Coast to the Gold Coast very early in the morning, 2.5 hours or whatever, 2.25 hours. I honestly got there and I went, "Wow, how did I get here?" Like, I'm hoping I wasn't swerving over the 3 or 4 lanes on the M1. But the point is that you become unconsciously competent there. So that idea of, I've got to know what I don't do well and might have good intentions, but I still might have a negative impact on other people. I need to know that. But I don't want, and that's going to be tough sometimes to absorb. But I've got to be able to do that if I'm going to kind of evolve and grow as a human being as well.
Do you have a good filter?
I've got a good filter professionally and personally, not at all. So
when you're at work and somebody says something like incredibly, I don't know, offensive, or I don't know, they challenge you on something.
I'm happy to pick people up on things and have a discussion about it. And
call the behaviour out.
Don't get me wrong, I'm okay away from work, but I remember doing a session for Marcus Mission, and it was around emotional intelligence, which is self-awareness and self-regulation. And I had forgotten something, and I'd phoned home and said, I've forgotten this. I cook for all the fellas, start off with a breakfast at 8 o'clock and cook up, and I think I'd forgotten spoons or spatulas or whatever. And so I'm on the phone and I'm on this wide path and I'm on my right side of the path, and this guy comes past in the bike and he goes, "Get off the phone, you fucking dickhead," and I've gone, "Go and get fucked, you wanker." So here I am about to give a session on self-regulation, and I'm telling this guy. And the reason for that is it's about knowing your triggers too. And, I was quick, I was under pressure, I was stressed, I wanted to get this stuff done. But it's also knowing that that's not fair. And I've got an overdeveloped sense of fairness. So when I see something that, for instance, from a social perspective, if I don't see that fair, social justice is a big issue for me. Or if someone's criticising me and I feel that I'm doing the right thing, I can easily spark in some situations away from work. But I do that less these days. But it was a good illustration of my lack of self-regulation for the session.
My God, I can talk to you all day. Like, seriously, you came here last night and we had dinner. How was dinner last night, by the way?
It was delicious, thanks, mate. You cook a mean lamb shanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
Even though I think it was pre-cooked.
You notice I was looking for compliments?
Yeah.
What's that about? What's that about? That I actually search for the compliment. Was that bad?
No, I don't think it's bad.
Like, how was my dinner? Like, I'm looking for gratification.
It was very
here.
nice, I have to
Yeah,
say.
but I have to say that. Why do I have to say that? That's an insecurity of mine.
Oh, I think we've all got insecurities. I often, remind people in my household of all the shit I've done around the place, and you go, well, that's kind of frightening. I feel like a, 3-year-old. Can you give me a compliment?
I hung the washing up for you. Not for me, but I hung the washing up for you.
That's right.
Oh, mate, we can be here all day, and you're going to come back and do this again. I think it's important. I do have, how good's your visualization skills, your looking skills, your, I don't know, picking out skills? How good are they? Are they good? Can you those things that you have sometimes? It's got find the 6 differences, and you got one picture here, and you got the other picture which is the same, but it's got 6 differences, and you got to go and circle them and go, oh yeah, the brick's out of line there. Are you any good at that?
Average. I'm a conceptual learner. It takes me a while.
All right, I'm going to show this maybe 2 or 3 times, John, and I want everyone else to be able to see it. But I got this yesterday, and it's part of our closing video, so we're about to close up here. But let's watch.
Can you find the real dog?
It's
Part
look for the
2.
dog, the real dog. All right, that's the first time.
Can you find the real dog? Part 2.
Can you see it? I can't see it.
I reckon it's that green plant that's disguised. Disguised as a
We're gonna
plant,
go
but really a
one more.
dog.
Can you find the real dog?
If anyone else can do it,
Part
you can tell me
2.
which is the real dog, you win the prize. Get a free trip to Mount Gravatt. That's the closest. So you didn't pick it? No, I didn't pick it either. I don't think it's true. I don't think there is any real dog in there. Oh, mate, I wanted to talk to you about so many other things, so you're going to have to come back. I've got the motivations. We only did one news story, and that was this TikToker, so I'm going to have to do all the other news stories. So you'll come back again next month, eh? We'll do that.
Enjoyed it. Thanks,
And
Joe.
I'm loving Marcus Mission. I'm loving what you're doing in there, and I'm so pleased to be a part of it. So put your headphones on. We're going to play the music, the outro music on.
Lovely.
And for everyone else, can you cheers the great man himself? Thanks, everyone. Thanks for watching. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining me tonight. And somebody was just asking who was he. Crystal, this was Jon Morgan. I'm going to be on tomorrow at the same time, 9 o'clock Australian Eastern Standard Time, all on my Pat Malone. Sony cans, bye for now.